How's it going, everyone? Jeff Johnson from the Gazette here with a stain-free K.J. Pilcher. He said he got the, what was it, broccoli and cheese
Broccoli and
out?
cheese soup.
That'll be messy sometimes.
Sometimes.
And Jeff Linder's down there on the end. You don't have anything on your shirt either, do you?
Probably some crumbs.
No, because I got the
Crumbs?
last cup of it. He
That's right.
didn't get any, so
That's right.
I
Lunch wars, kids.
I
Lunch
took the proverbial broccoli and cheese bullet for you.
Week 8 of our Iowa Prep Sports Pick'ems. We're going to take 10 high school football games from Friday night and analyze them and give you our winner. Let's start at the top of the list here, and it is a Class 4A game between Linn-Mar and Iowa City High down at Bates Field in Iowa City. Linn-Mar's 5-2 overall and 3-0 in district play. Iowa City High 2-5, 1-2. Linn-Mar with a win last week. Kind of survived Muscatine 35-19 and City High with a 38-14 loss to Pleasant Valley. It's kind of been a renaissance season so far for the Lions, guys, and they're kind of inching their way towards the playoffs, which is a good thing, right?
Yeah, good thing for them. We're supposed to be neutral, but yeah, good for them. Really nice season for them. When Marcus Orr came back, that was a big boost for the Lions, and I think it's going to continue this week with on their way to a 4-0 record in the district with a win at Bates Field.
It's not exactly the toughest district there is in 4A, obviously, KJ, but you know what? That's out of their control. You play the schedules that's in front of you, and Linn-Mar has done a good job of that. City High, on the other hand, is kind of kind of a so-so season, I guess, maybe for Dan Sabers down there. Linn-Mar is the heavy favorite, and is that kind of who you're going with?
Yeah, just to bring up the fact about 4A4, only 2 teams have winning records out of that group, and one of them is Davenport North, which is 4-3, so they're right on the cusp as well. Linn-Mar certainly is shown to be the favorite, but you mentioned Iowa City High and Marcus Orr. He threw for 223 yards and 4 TDs. I didn't really have a lot of time to do stats, but let me just throw a couple out here. Iowa City High's biggest Achilles heel, I think, has been their rush defense. They gave up 336 to Davenport North and 342 to Pleasant Valley in the last 2 weeks. In their wins, they've only given up 118 rushing yards a game, which were to Ames and Muscatine. But in the losses, they give up over 300 yards on the ground. Bryson White for Linn-Mar is coming off a 110-yard performance in a TD, including a 40-yarder. City High's pass defense hasn't been terrible, but Orr comes in with the ability to put up a lot of yards. As we mentioned, 223 yards and 4 TDs last week, threw passes to 9 different receivers. And that's pretty impressive. That's a lot of weapons. That's going to open things up on the ground, and obviously City High has a hard time stopping teams from running the ball effectively. And then City High only gives up 15.9 points per game. Or only scores 15.9 points per game. So it's going to be hard for them to keep up in a shootout if it is one. And just like Linn-Mar.
I just think Linn-Mar is a better team. So that's who I'm going with as well. We all agree on that one. Let's move on to Class 3A for our next game, and it is Davenport Assumption at Iowa City Liberty. Assumption is 5-2 overall and 3-0 in district play. Liberty 5-2, 2-1. Last week, Assumption beat Clear Creek Manna 27-14. Liberty was a winner, 14-12 over DeWitt Central. We all here agree on this game as well as far as the winner. Do you guys agree that it'll be a close game, like I think it will be?
Yeah, I think so. I like Assumption to win the game. I think they're, like you said in the first one, just a little bit better. I do think this will be a very competitive game. Maybe definitely, I would say decide by 2 touchdowns or less. Kind of a must-win for Liberty if they're going to get in. I think they're probably going to have to get to 7-2 to make the playoffs, and I just think Assumption's going to win this one.
KJ, Assumption is its losses have been to top 3 ranked teams. Number 3 Xavier 17-0, and number 2 Solon 17-13. So it's not as if the Knights have lost to the sisters or brothers of the poor, if you will.
Right.
Liberty 7-point loss to Washington and a 14-point loss to North Scott. So same thing goes there.
Right, and these are 2 big weeks for Assumption, with Liberty and then North Scott in the finale. And this is where it's, this district's going to come down to. And like you said, I think they were even ahead in the Solon game.
Yeah,
Maybe
they were up 13-3.
See, so that's, they very well could be 6-1 at this point with with that signature win there. But these are 2 programs. Liberty just in its 2nd season, hasn't really been in this spot before. Davenport Assumption, everybody knows their tradition, and they've, these types of games have occurred on a regular basis. That might come into play. This, just that experience factor and just how to prepare and then execute on Friday in a game like this. So I just think things point to Assumption, but. With Liberty's defense and their ability to run the ball and maybe control the clock in possession, they're certainly going to be in it. And that's going to have to be, how they win the game.
Yeah, I think it'll be low scoring, honestly, and I do think it'll be close. But I agree with you guys. I think Assumption might be just a hair bit better, and we'll pick up the win. Let's move on now to Class 2A for our next game. It's a District 7 matchup between 9th-ranked Benton Community and 10th-ranked West Marshall. Benton Community 6-1, 2-1 in district play. West Marshall is 5-2, 3-0. Benton coming off a 42-7 shellacking of Roland Story last week.
Shellacking.
West Marshall upset 8th-ranked Nevada 28-7. This is West Marshall kind of controls its destiny here as far as the district goes. With that win over Nevada, I believe if it beats Benton Friday night, it automatically clinches things.
They both control their destiny. If Benton would win, they're going to have the best RPI in a 3-way tie in that district. If that's how it turns out. Good ballgame. I think. That was a good one for us to pick over at State Center. Just a hunch. I'm going to go with Benton in a close one.
KJ, is State Center actually in the center of the state?
I believe it is actually 2.3 miles shifted to the northeast.
Is that right?
Of the state's geographic center.
I got
you. But it's very, very close to State Center. It's officially, I think it's referred to as State Center-ish.
Okay.
State Center-ish.
So is it West Marshall-ish high school or just?
West Marshall-like.
West Marshall-like, okay.
Or esque. I'm sorry, it's West Marshall-esque.
Okay. Saying that fast 5 times, so.
Can't. But, I think this is a good test, for both teams. West Marshall has had 2 really close games that they've dropped with Williamsburg and Appleton Parkersburg, but they've won 3 straight games and been fairly dominant. So things are clicking for them right now. Benton did a nice job of bouncing back after that loss to Nevada. Maybe Benton's back on track after that little hiccup. You got to think West Marshall's confidence is pretty high after their win against Nevada, who beat Benton Community in, week 5 or week 6. So I'm still going with Benton Community. I like their skill players, their pass game. So I'm going to go with the Bobcats over West Marshall-esque.
Peyton Pope had 243 yards rushing last week for West Marshall. That is kind of how the Trojans, I believe, are they Trojans? West Marshall Trojans? That's how the Trojans try and get it done offensively, and Benton kind of likes to throw the ball around with Clay Krause. It's interesting that you look at Benton's schedule and its points, 51, 30, 33, 48, 41, 42, and then 3 in the loss. So maybe that was just a bad night for the Bobcats. Obviously, it was a bad night for the Bobcats. That being said, I think when you're playing in state center-ish, that's pretty tough territory, and I'm going to be the odd duck here and pick West Marshall to win at home. So let's move on to Class 2A District 4 for our next game. It is North Fayette Valley, 4-3, 2-1 in the district against 7th-ranked Waterloo Columbus, 6-1, 2-1. NFV was a 42-22 winner over Owine last week. Had to be a weird deal there with the old coach Bob Lape, now of Owine, playing against his old school. Columbus lost a 20-7 game to top-ranked Waukon last week as well. How will Columbus respond to, the disappointing loss to Waukon, I guess, is the only question I have here. Otherwise, I do think that the Sailors are the better team and will win. Am I close there?
They'll respond with a win. To tell you the truth, I know coaches aren't into moral victories, but I mean, I can't think they're walking away from that Waukon loss at 20-7 feeling that terrible about it. That's actually I think Waukon's second closest game of the season. So I think they'll bounce back. North Fayette Valley, they've done some good things, as of late, but I don't think it's the same North Fayette Valley team we've seen in past years, and Waterloo Columbus is pretty good.
Jeff, how do you analyze this one?
I'm on board with both of you on this one. I think it's Columbus.
I agree as well. It also helps that the Sailors will be playing at home in this one as well. So it's a clean sweep here for Waterloo Columbus in that game. Let's move to another Class 2A game here a little south, and it is Camanche 5-2, 2-1 in District 5, and the Indians will be playing at West Marshall or at West Liberty 4-3, 2-1. That'd be tough if West Marshall had to play 2 games in 2 different cities.
Split
squads.
At West Liberty, 4-3, 2-1 are the comments. Last week, Camanche defeated Mount Vernon 45-10, and West Liberty almost doubled up Louisa Muscatine 27-14. District 5, Jeff, is Tipton's to kind of win or lose right now.
Yep.
Tipton is in the driver's seat. Camanche and West Liberty, I guess, are trying to hang on. West Liberty and Tipton, I believe, play in next week in the finale. So if West Liberty can win this one and win next week, then I believe it would be the district champion. So a lot to play for here for both these teams.
Yeah. Yeah, you're right. If West Liberty wins out, they do win the district. That being said, I think Camanche has been a really good story this year. They've kind of been down the last few years in in football. Got hammered in the first week of district play against Tipton, but came back and beat L&M, and then a score that really surprised me at least. Put the continuous clock into play against Mount Vernon. I didn't expect that. That being said, I think they're on a little bit of a roll, and I think they'll win again this week.
KJ, what do you have here?
I have West Liberty. They've bounced back from the Mount Vernon loss. Kind of a weird deal where they moved the game up to Thursday. Not making any excuses at all, because Mount Vernon, won that and burned West Liberty with the deep pass. But just kind of like what West Liberty has done the last 2 weeks. Will Esmoyle and Talon Dangler provide a nice little 1-2 punch for that offense. Esmeralda went over 100 yards against Louisa Muscatine last week. Dangler added a few yards and a passing touchdown as well. I just think I just like the Comets, and I actually like the Comets winning out and then making the playoffs.
Yeah, I'm gonna. I guess I'm the deciding vote here. I'm gonna go with Camanche to win. As Jeff said, nice little season that the Indians have put together. Been really good in basketball here in the last 3, 4, 5 years, and apparently that's kind of carried over to football as well. This one, either way, really wouldn't surprise me. I do kind of think it's probably a 50-50 game, and I'm just going to go with Camanche to win a close one here. So let's move down to our last 4 games in Class A, and the biggie at Monona is Class A District 5, number 5 ranked Edgewood-Colesburg, 6-1, 3-0 in district play. At MFL MarMac, 7-0, 3-0. Edco shut out Alburnett last week, 39-0. MFL MarMac got past Lisbon, 25-16. This probably is the biggest football game ever to be played in Monona, Iowa, I would guess. You guys agree with that, KJ? You're going to be up there,
yes, sir.
And this should be a real slobber knocker, huh?
Could be. It'll be pretty interesting to see how these teams, kind of stack up with one another. As you mentioned, don't know if there's ever been a bigger game at Monona for this team, this program, and then even Edco. Before last year, they probably didn't really have very many games like this. But, they have quite a few guys back from last year. Their defense plays very well. They're going to have their work cut out for them trying to shut down Cutter Anderson, who's rushed for 841 yards and 12 touchdowns for MFL and has really kind of powered things there. You got to go with the experience factor. I think I said that for one of the earlier games as well. I think Assumption and Liberty. Not quite the same situation, but I think it could be similar to where Edco's been through some of these things last year, like the playoffs and close games. And I think, this is you have Rochford and Hansel, and I believe there's a Stainer for Edco as well. Max Balls on the defensive side. I just like Edco in this one. Probably a close game.
Jeff, to KJ's point there, Edco made it to the Class A semifinals last year. That's almost as big a game as you can get.
Yeah.
MFL MarMac, I believe the 7 wins is a school record.
Yep.
So they're playing with house money.
Yes, in essence, that's absolutely correct here. And you said that you think that if Edco loses this game, it might not make the playoffs, and which would be kind of a shame to me because Edco's only loss was to 1A North Linn, and Edco was on the 1-yard line on the final play of the game and was stopped.
Yeah.
So just that close to knocking off a pretty good 1A team as well. So it'd be kind of be a shame if Edco doesn't win this game and would somehow get shut out of the playoffs.
Yeah.
But how are you looking at this one?
They're both playing for the district title, and if MFL would win out, they might get a top 4 seed, which gets them 2 home games. I like Edco in this game. The stats are just about identical. They both have an 800-yard passer. They both have an 800-yard rusher. They both play great defense. I like Edco because of its experience and what I would call its desperation. I think they might be playing for playoff survival, and because of that, I'm going to go with Edco.
I'm going to be the dissenter here. I think this is a game that MFL MarMac has really kind of pointed to since very, very early in the season. And the Bulldogs had a really nice win early in Game 1, actually, against good South Winneshiek team. They know that they can win these big games, and I just think MFL will have just enough to edge this one out, and I do think it'll be a close game, and it should be a doozy. So follow this guy on Twitter at K.J. Pilcher. He'll be up in Monona. How'd you figure out a place to eat, by the way?
I think
Up
it's
there.
still. I think it's still up in the air.
Okay.
I think we're leaning towards the St. Olaf Tavern, even
Okay.
though we heard TJ's Pizza is like almost right next to the field, which would make it very convenient. I have some people coming up with me that we might stop at Luana
Okay.
to meet family and eat. So we'll see.
Game time decision.
We might flip a coin.
Let's move on to Class A, District 6 for our next game. It'll be Durant 4-3, 2-1 at BGM, 6-1, 2-1. Durant was a 34-13 winner last week over Highland. BGM defeated Pekin 27-14. District-wise, I don't know who wants to go first here. Jeff, I guess. Pretty big game. BGM's had a very nice year again after. Well, you know what? Quite honestly, I mean, it's kind of a program that has always kind of put itself into position to be in the playoffs,
Yeah,
right?
the last 10 years or so, they've kind of quietly been a really good program, good small school program, and you'd say the same again this year. Just a 2-point loss to Belle Plaine 2 weeks ago. Durant has become, since they've moved down
Better.
to Class A, they've gotten better. They made the playoffs, I believe, last year. Did they? They made.
Yes,
They made.
yes.
Did they win that district last year?
Boy, I believe they were. Were they undefeated in the regular season? Maybe
Maybe.
they had one loss. I know they lost the first round.
Yeah,
to
but-
someone.
They've won 2 straight playoff games. I'm sorry, 2 straight district games to get to 2-1. I see a good competitive game here. I'm going to go with BGM. They're at home. I think maybe just a skosh better than Durant.
I think Belle Plaine has kind of the stranglehold right now, at least on that district championship, if I remember right, because I think Belle Plaine's beaten both BGM and Durant.
Right.
So
They still have Pekin and Highland to go.
yes, KJ, where do you see this one? Young man named Beck had a heck of a game last week for BGM, right?
He's had a heck of a season. He's kind of the do-it-all guy. We've seen that for a few programs. They've got guys that do that. You talk about Logan Schmidt up in Independence, and a few players like that. And Noah Beck is right there with them. Throws the ball a little bit, but I believe he ranks 6th in Class A with 1,350 yards rushing. He's got 20 touchdowns. You look at what he does on the defensive side. He's second on the team in tackles. He's got 3 interceptions and a couple fumble recoveries for 5 total takeaways. So he does a little bit of everything. And like you mentioned, and coming off a big game last week, as well against Pekin, rushed for 305 yards and 4 touchdowns, and even threw for 38 yards and had a reception to boot. So I think BGM success is going to kind of teeter on the fact that, on how he performs and whether or not Durant can kind of stop him and force somebody else like a Jordan Kriegel to step in and beat him. But I like what BGM does. I think they'll get back the ball how he needs it and take care of business.
I like BGM as well. Durant has a couple of close losses to 1A teams, good 1A teams in North Cedar and Tipton. So certainly the Wildcats have represented themselves very nicely again this season after a playoff berth last year. That being said, as I said, I'm going with the Bears in this one. 8-player for our final 3 games. Let's go here to District 4 for our first one. We're gonna mix it up here. Montezuma 5-2, 3-2 at English Valley's 4-3, 2-3 in the district. Monty defeated HLV last week in a high-scoring game, 56-44. English Valley's lost to Waco, 56-46. two teams that I think have had kind of very similar seasons, guys, and that probably portends to be this will be a very close game. Correct?
That's a weird district. I just threw out some playoff projections here earlier this morning, and that could be a 3-way tie. It could be a 4-way tie.
Wow.
When it's all said and done.
Iowa Valley's in there, correct?
Iowa Valley, New London, HLV, both of these teams. Waco's pretty decent. Am I missing somebody? Lone Tree. No, it just seems like every week something kind of crops up out of that district that you don't expect. HLV's still the leader at this point, but a lot yet to be decided in the last 2 weeks. But in this one, I'm going to go with Montezuma to kind of keep their district title hopes alive and their playoff hopes as well.
Bo Flanders, sophomore for English Valleys, last week had 199 yards rushing. KJ, and he was upstaged, I guess, on the, if you want to look at the other side of the field, very nice win for Montezuma. Sophomore Eddie Burgess, 151 yards rushing, 3 touchdowns, threw for 227 yards and 5 more touchdowns. So my math isn't real good, but I believe that's 8 touchdowns.
And he's played well all season, and certainly that performance came against a very good HLV team. But, to steal kind of a wrestling cliche, and it's a sports cliche overall, but you hear it from some wrestling coaches in Iowa City a lot. But it's always easier to move forward with success, right? You see 2 teams, Montezuma lost a couple games to Lone Tree and Iowa Valley, and then bounced back with the win against HLV. English Valleys coming off a couple straight losses to New London and Waco. You got to like a team, it's coming off the win a little bit, especially one that, outside of those 2 weeks, has been very impressive with Montezuma. So I'm going to go with Monty, even though I think maybe the first time I picked EV, and then I gave my picks back and went with Montezuma after all. So
I'm going to take Montezuma as well. I think the Braves kind of keep themselves in playoff contention here with a win on the road. Staying in District 4 for our next game, Iowa Valley 5-2, 3-2 in district play at New London. Similar or same identical records of 5-2, 3-2. Iowa Valley over Lone Tree last week, 44-12. It was New London defeating Winfield Mount Union 52-14. I guess this is kind of a similar thing. Keep yourself in contention. The winner will do that. The loser probably won't, right?
Right. And Iowa Valley still has its destiny in its own hands. Really surprisingly lost to English Valleys in the first game of the district, but they've kind of gotten some stuff going here a little bit. I like Iowa Valley in this one, but who knows?
Ben Smith with a nice overall game last week, had around 300 yards passing and throwing for Iowa Valley. And yeah, I mean, Jeff, you look at, or KJ, you look at the losses have only been by 7 points to Waco and by 1 point to English Valleys. And, you look at New London, defending state champs, lost an awful lot from that team. Losses were to Lone Tree by 6 and HLV by 12. So, lost a lot of talent to graduation, but New London still with a very nice team.
Yeah, I saw Iowa Valley in the opening week against Collins Maxwell, and I picked Iowa Valley all year long, even when they did have a couple hiccups there. I just really like them. Ben Smith is, a leader for that team, and I like the way he plays. And they have a few others that really pitch in well. There for, Derek Leonard has over 500 yards. Evan Reuter. So I just like the Tigers. I've kind of been a fan of them ever since the beginning of the season, and I just think they're going to take care of business here this weekend, setting up a really big game against HLV in Week 9.
New London did not throw a pass last week. Interesting statistic there against Winfield Mount Union. Didn't need to, 152-14. So that being said, I'm agreeing with these guys. I think Iowa Valley will win a very close game. I believe Iowa Valley gave New London its only loss last year in the regular season, if I remember correctly. So
You do.
Iowa Valley, I think it'll
That
be
was a
IB in this
sloppy
one.
condition game, though, was it?
Yeah, it was.
Yeah,
it
they
was
got
played on
postponed
Saturday.
and
Yeah.
they played the next day. And I think it was really low scoring.
Let's wrap things up here with another 8-man game, and it is a big one. A couple of top 10 teams in District 3, Easton Valley, ranked number 6, 7-0, 5-0 in the district. At third-ranked Turkey Valley, 7-0, 5-0. Both these teams won handily last week. Easton Valley over Lansing Key, 67-14. Turkey Valley over West Central, 68-0. Guys, this is what it's all about, right? Two very good 8-man football teams playing for a district championship. I would think probably both would get in, Jeff.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, neither of them have a loss yet, and they're not going to keep an 8-1 team out. I think you've got Easton Valley who likes to throw it all over the place, and you got Turkey Valley that likes to run it, and both methods work. Easton Valley scores 62 a game, Turkey Valley 59. Both teams don't give up much on the other side, so it's going to be a high-scoring game. It's going to be a low-scoring game. It's going to be close, blowout. I don't know. It's a long way from Preston to Jackson Junction.
Yes, it is.
And I think when you get to this point in the season, you like the team that likes to run. So with those two things in mind, I'm going to go with Turkey Valley.
Nathan Trendkamp had 6 touchdown passes last week to go with Jeff's point there for Easton Valley. Easton Valley likes to throw the ball. On the other hand, Turkey Valley last week didn't attempt to pass. So, yeah, I got a map quest at KJ. I'm going to let you analyze this, but I got a map quest to see how far that is.
You know, I was able to watch Turkey Valley play Springville, and that was still one of the most impressive performances because Springville's a good club.
Yes.
I mean, I think they're 4-3 or 5-3,
5-3, I think,
right now. But Turkey Valley scored on every possession, scored touchdowns on every possession. They pounded the ball, obviously, with the run game. They threw a few passes over the top when they could. Returned a kickback for a touchdown. They did just about everything right against a very good team. And that happened to be the team that scored the most points against them. I think Springville put up 39. Other than that,
82 or something like that?
84, 39. And I think outside of that, they haven't given up more than 14 points a game, which for 8-man is pretty impressive, I think, anyway. So, yeah, they run the ball well. They obviously play good defense. They have the ability to throw over the top when it presents itself. And they run hard. You know, it's not that they just run the ball well, but they run hard. You know, Eli Reichs leads them with 643 yards. Dylan Ellsburn, which, I know you're watching, Dylan. But those guys, I just like Turkey Valley. I was so impressed with them that night at Springville, and they haven't really let up off the gas yet. You know, Turkey Valley's got a nice little tradition as well. I just see them coming away with a victory here.
153 miles.
Two straight shutouts for TV as well.
Very good. Very good. It's 153 miles from Preston, Iowa to, actually, they say that Turkey Valley School is located in Wacoma on Highway whatever it is. So, but that is a jaunt. 2 hours and 48 minutes in light traffic at the moment. So,
and I'm guessing it's not like a straight, that's how you get there.
No.
It's probably here,
yes,
here.
absolutely. No easy way to get there. So,
You're taking roads that start with like E and X.
You have like blue signs.
W, yeah.
I think that, I mean, I don't see how that can't make
X47.
at least a little bit of a factor. That's a long time to spend on a bus to get ready for a football game. So just think how late it's going to be by the time they get home, for crying out loud. But, yeah, And this is another great game, and I'm going with Turkey Valley at home. I think this is. I think they're both obviously top 10 ranked teams, but I think Turkey Valley is maybe one of the in a handful of teams that can win it all. So I'm going to go with the Trojans in this one. All right, guys. At KJ Pilcher, we know you're going to be in Monona for MFL MarMac and Edco tomorrow night. Jeff Linder at JT Linder, you will be.
I'll be at Bates Field, Linn-Mar, and City High.
And at JEJE66, I will be at Liberty for the Assumption and Iowa City Liberty game. So, again, the running scoreboard, we'll have that live scoreboard going on our website, thegazette.com. You can keep up to date with every game tomorrow night. Tons of games we're covering again as usual, rounding up a bunch of games that we're not actually at. And then we'll have the big prep rewind on Saturday for Sunday's paper. This is it, boys. We're getting down to the nitty gritty. Week 8.
And also keep a lookout for me up at MFL. I'm trying to see if I can finagle some
Popcorn?
Gazette swag to bring up with me and maybe pass out to some people that come up and say hi. So we'll see. But if you see me, come up to say hi anyway, and maybe I'll have something for you.
And he loves popcorn, so if you want to get him a bag of popcorn when you come up and say hi, that'd be awfully nice. So, all right, Jeff, KJ. Nope, I can't believe it. One more week after this. This is where the fun starts. Nathan, thank you for as always for producing expertise for a Week 8 edition of our Iowa Prep Sports Pick'ems. Signing off. Keep your head on a swivel.
There you go.
See you next week.